Well, welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your cannabis business podcast. Back with us, Luke Carlin with Let's Talk Cannabis LMC podcast, also a cannabis consultant. You got a couple other things you want to plug?
You can just follow me. You can go to my YouTube and just all my links are there. But no, that's perfect though. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll have some of those links in the description, show notes. So recapping 2020 before we get into 2021's crystal ball predictions. Last year we had 7 predictions. I asked you, Luke, to kind of maybe have a couple on hand. And in a couple minutes, I'm going to ask you for your least likely to come true, and then we'll work our way to your most likely. Last year we had 7 predictions that we aggregated from half a dozen sites, and there was, I think, 68 data points that we put together to kind of collect them into 7 different categories. Number 7 being most people thought that, or a lot of people thought that medical or education was going to be part of 2020's curriculum, and then 11%, almost 11% thought CBD was going to be mainstream and moving forward. Almost 12% had something to do with cannabinoids or terpenes. Vaping, obviously, with the vape gate, over 13% thought that was going to have more things involved with that. Edibles at number 3 at 16%. Almost 20% had something to do with legalization. And then number 1 spot at almost 24% was price and profit. So I'll just kind of show you briefly kind of how that worked out. So Leafly or Benzinga or 420 Intel, whoever I got the data from, looking at Leafly, for example, they had a lot of things to do with cannabinoids like strains and exotic cannabinoids, or a lot of the legislature like Congress taking half steps, or border problem continues, or 3 new adult states, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. So if that's, you got any questions about how we came up with our info from last year?
So just really quick. So those are the percentages of people that is based off people you've talked to, or is that based off data that was collected by Leafly and Benzinga?
The latter. Yeah. So that was just everyone from the 6 different sites I collected in 2020. 1/5, for example, thought legalization was going to be 2020's theme, or, crystal ball prediction, which came true pretty much. It was
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Looks like I'm good to go.
And actually just kind of running through last year. So a lot of this stuff did come true. So medical and education, I guess that came true with the pandemic. Kyle Turley came out and said that, cannabis and CBD was going to help with the pandemic. And then now there's a lot more research and medical and education surrounding that. I think that's kind of interesting. Cannabinoid, I'd say CBD, hit mainstream for sure. And other cannabinoids like CBG and CBN are definitely making the mainstream. So those predictions kind of came true. Vaping is the most popular product in Arizona. And, pre-rolls are really popular here in Washington State. But vaping is still a thing. A lot of people into it.
Yeah. Well, I'm into vaping myself.
Edibles, man, they were all the rage this year with the pandemic. A lot of people switched from topicals and tinctures and went straight to the heavy hitting edibles. So that absolutely came true.
Yeah, with I think with the worry of the pandemic, people definitely wanted to move to more of an edible, less combustion, less, not as hard on their throat or their lungs. I mean, so that makes a lot of sense.
And then legalization, regulation, obviously 1 out of 5 people thought that was going to come true with an election year. So we did have, 4 states that kind of came on board. So another prediction coming true. And then price and profit. I mean, geez, if it wasn't about, the pandemic, it was about companies either merging. We saw 2 huge mergers with Canopy and Tilray, all about price and profit. So that's kind of still an ongoing thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's jump into 2021 and see what might happen, since we kind of recap 2020, and pretty much all of those things had something to do with last year. This year's a little bit interesting because not a lot of people really know like what's happening. So over here to the right, I've got a new data set that I grabbed from Leafly, the NASDAQ, Seeking Alpha, MJ Business Daily, Weed Week, Fresh Toast, Prohibition Partners, Potlander, and somebody else that is no longer with us. But I aggregated all of it into 8 predictions for 2021. And looks like number 8, investment starts to surge. So some people were talking, like MJ Business Daily and the Fresh Toast thought that we would see a lot of investment capital. I would probably point that to, just the U.S.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a ton of, I mean, we're already seeing those massive mergers like you just noted. I think we're going to see a lot of these cannabis MSOs, the US cannabis MSOs, start to merge together, some of them potentially. I know a lot of them are pretty worried about this, what just happened in Georgia with the Senate now going to the Democrats, meaning the MORE Act is coming down the pipeline, and a lot of people and a lot of investors that I talk to that are very heavily invested in the U.S. cannabis MSOs are not very happy about that because they're worried about the big consumer goods giants coming in once you have federal legalization. So how do we? I think that I think we're going to see mergers. I think you're going to see potentially like a True Leaf and a Green Thumb. That's been in. I've heard some whispers of that. And then I've also heard a Cure Leaf and Cresco merger. I've heard whispers of that. It's really, I just think it's going to be interesting to see how are they going to counter. And obviously, it's like, when is the MORE Act going to come down the pipeline? Is it going to be in 2021 or 2022? It really has to be in those 2 years, in my opinion, because that's, when the Democrats control all 3. It's either going to be in the next 2 years. I mean, if it's going to happen anytime soon, it's going to happen, like I said, in the next 2 years. So, but it's going to be really, really interesting to see how these U.S. cannabis MSOs are going to counter-react. Are they going to merge together, get bigger, or are they going to just get acquired by, a Walmart or a Costco or, one of those big consumer goods companies?
Kind of goes hand in hand with, not to jump to number 1, but we were saying with the legalization and some of these other things, it's going to spur investments, just like what we saw after the election. Stocks, cannabis stocks popped. And then after the Georgia runoff, we also saw that because I think the House and the Senate are going to be Democratic controlled with a Democratic president. And so there's a lot more optimism for either decrim or legalization or something. So moving on to number 7 on our 2021 predictions, there was some people out that like Leafly, they thought there was going to be some international market expansion. Fresh Toast, global MMJ exports from Prohibition Partners. So at number 7 on our 2021 predictions, 8% thought that there would be some international expansion. We saw some contraction in Canada. Didn't they pull out of Colombia because there was some issues that Canada didn't want to import or something? So,
yeah, I think we saw a little bit of that. I also, what company? Because we did also just see though a Colombia company just get listed on the NASDAQ, or what was it? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
There was a company I just read about that is going to be listed on NASDAQ.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one though. But
yeah, I can't remember either. Yeah.
Price and profit, number 1 last year dropped to 8.3%. So kind of surprising to hit our number 6 spot, which means that, well, first off, I had to go and expand from, 6 data points last year to 12 this year because I couldn't get enough data points. Last year I had almost 70. This year I barely hit 40, which tells me that people don't really know what's going to happen. A lot of uncertainty. This year's just, with the pandemic and everything else, kind of throwing some things through the loop, as well as, optimism. So people aren't really worried about price and profit too much. 8.3% drop into our number 6 slots. Top line revenue from Weed Week, maximizing revenue from Fresh Toast, maximizing revenue from Prohibition Partners. So still important, but definitely not the top spot.
Yeah, no, and with price and profit, I mean, prices in different markets are pretty astounding. Profit, and it depends what sector of the market you're looking at and which specific markets as well. But profit, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some, when it comes to certain investments, some of those bigger companies maybe aren't they're on the way to profit. But with certain sectors though, like a lot of the verticals, a lot of the dispensaries, their profit is looking nice, and some of those prices are pretty astounding. Like if you look at Pennsylvania, the prices there pretty insane with Pennsylvania with their medical marijuana market.
A lot of new rollouts have crazy prices. I remember seeing Cali with $60 to $100 grams of
Yeah,
concentrate when it first rolled out, and
you're like, what the hell?
man, yeah, it takes a while for that to come down. Even in Washington, the vape carts were 60 to $80 for 1 gram. Now you can get them for under 40 for top shelf. Same company. I really like Avitas, or sativa spelled backwards. Really good live rosin. But yeah, anyways, well,
they definitely need to get that down too, though, because I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what keeps alive the illegal market, and you need to make sure that in the long term, profit will be higher, but you have to consolidate the actual consumers into the illegal market, kind of usher them in, and by having high prices is not the best way to do that.
Well, so they expect demand to continue to be strong. So 11% expect demand to be the continuing theme for 2021 in our crystal ball predictions at the number 5 slot, demand. So Leafly said demand is going to remain strong. The Potlander, same thing. Demand is going to remain strong according to the Fresh Toast and Prohibition Partners. So, yeah, I would expect that, if you're going to have lockdown and you're not going to be able to go anywhere, you're probably going to remain using cannabinoids, whether it's THC, CBD, or those other minor cannabinoids. Do you expect demand to remain where it's at, Luke?
I mean, it really depends, I guess, in specific markets, it really depends what market we're talking about.
Let's say same store, same market year over year.
Yeah. In a more mature market, like let's talk about Washington. I mean, I don't see demand. I think that we've hit a point now here where in Washington State, the illegal market has been pretty much destroyed when it comes to like people selling, to the local populations here. So I personally think I agree with you. I think demand's going to stay pretty much at the same point, really.
Yeah, Washington is pretty much leveled out. You may see a shift in consumer preferences that we've seen. And so in the fall time, you might see people hoarding toilet paper and cannabis, buying a lot more bigger bulk. What we're seeing in Washington is a lot of the producers are only making large packages. They're not making grams as much as they were because there isn't the tourism. So now they're making like 1 ounces versus 1 gram. So definitely a change or a switch on that one.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to number 4, cannabinoids are going to be a highlight for 2021, according to 11.1% of the people that I grabbed. According to Leafly, minor cannabinoids, Weed Week said Delta 8 THC, man-made THC, and minor cannabinoids, according to Prohibition Partners. So regardless, I guess we saw THCP about this time last year. And haven't seen anybody. I was looking for a CBN product to review. Maybe we can talk about that offline. But cannabinoids, I think it's going to still be all the rage. We talk about CBD like it's the only thing out there, but definitely a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Cannabinoids, I think what really is, we need more education. I think the more products that are specifically, their main product offering really is to highlight these different cannabinoids and what they do. I think that's really what is necessary to help expand certain cannabinoids. I mean, I think it's going to for now stay around like the typical, baseline, the CBDs and then maybe a little bit of CBG. But I think we can get more of an understanding and more education out there. There'll be higher demands for other cannabinoids. But I think for right now, because I think you need, capital to back up, a product that specifically highlights a certain cannabinoid that is different than the typical ones, for it really to make, for the education to then be there, for the money to be backing up that education. But I mean, I would say, yeah, I mean, CBD, THC, some maybe getting into like a couple other pretty well-known ones as well. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I think the education is going to come down the line a little bit farther down the line in a couple of years, because the education, like I said, is really needs to be there.
So rounding out the top three, hemp moves into the number third spot with 13.9%. Hemp industry testing matures. You're going to have USDA reviewing hemp, CBD regulations, according to Weed Week. Fresh Toast said USDA reviews hemp. Prohibition Partners thinks that CBD is going to have European regulations. But regardless, it looks like almost 14% think that CBD will. I kind of upgraded that to just hemp in general. So we're going to see a lot more things with hemp, I would imagine.
Yeah, so hemp's going to be an interesting one for me to see, because I've talked to plenty of people, and we're kind of doing the exact same thing that we did last year with hemp. I think there's going to be too much supply in the CBD, necessarily not enough output for demand. But I think really
switch to more rare cannabinoids, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, but I think really, having the processing, infrastructure to be able to process this hemp, that is really the big missing piece in the overall hemp industry in general. I mean, obviously extracting, whether it's the full spectrum or whatever, whatever cannabinoid or, whatever CB it may be. I do think, though, there is, like, for example, you see like Bruce Linton, right? They had a SPAC, and he was looking at, he was thinking about collective growth, and he wanted to do a massive amount of different hemp, processing companies come together and collectively. Mm-hmm. And he kind of realized, I don't think that was really there yet, even to acquire with the SPAC. And now I think he's transitioned into like the EV market or something. So I think there is a big missing component to that with having the infrastructure to process the hemp and not. I do think that the CBD market is been saturated for a while, and there is, I think, a little bit of hesitancy and lack of education, or people have been abusing the CBD product, whether it's just bad product or they're promising things that aren't realistic with CBD. So I think there needs to be some touch up there in terms of better education, a little bit better regulation, maybe. Or
a co-op is a great way to survive, because otherwise you're going to either be gobbled up through an agreement, a merger and acquisition that's either you both agree on, or you're going to have capitulation where eventually you're just forced to merge, or you're going to go out of business. So I guess that brings us up to number 2, which is consolidation. 16.7% thought that the market was going to be consolidated in 2021. So that means that Seeking Alpha, they said there was going to be an increased consolidation and a rise of brands. When you have a big brand, that's because you don't really have a lot of competition. And it also has a lot to do with investment surges and expansion and companies that are profitable and an increase in demand and using rare cannabinoids and hemp and all of that. All of it plays a role. We thought that there was going to be a rise of brands and mergers and acquisitions. Fresh Toast mentioned an increase in consolidation. And so all in all, we're seeing consolidation reaching our number 2 spot in 2021 for Crystal Ball Predictions. And I think it's pretty obvious to say that there's going to be a lot of FOMO coming into the U.S. using probably Canadian money and SPACs too, specialty purpose acquisition corps, a blank check company to kind of come in and just gobble up companies. I think we've already started to see that.
Yeah, no, I mean the rise of SPACs have been like really interesting to me, because I mean those really haven't been a thing ever in like past history. I mean SPACs have really even become those haven't even become a thing until like the last 5 years or something, right? And they're really a product of the mass consolidation that we've seen in other markets, and with people that have endless amounts of money. And so they, like you said, the blank check. I mean, whenever you hear blank check, it's like they must have a lot of money to pretty much, be. I mean, obviously they're pretty careful with the investment, but just the rise of SPACs in general, I think, especially we've been hearing that word for the last, couple of years heavily, mainly last year, really. And I mean, that is just a massive indicator of consolidation. And I talked a little bit about it at the very beginning. But yeah, we're going to see a lot of consolidation, I think. And then I think that's a good segue into, I guess, the political aspect of it.
Yeah, the number one spot, which is legalization, or legal and regulation and political things, moving into the number one slot at 41.7%. So that includes federal reform, according to Leafly. Potlander said there's going to be more rec and MMJ and federal reform. See federal legalization. NASDAQ mentioned the New York rec was going to happen, and federal decrim. Domino effect, according to Seeking Alpha, which is like, just once New Jersey passed and New York wants to. It's the FOMO effect. Here's the positive political climate. And then MJ Business Daily talks about more rec and no federal charges. Weed Week talks about no federal charges. Positive political climate from the Fresh Toast. Prohibition Partners mentions the federal reform. UK is going to regulate cannabis and CBD, and Latin America is going to legalize.
A lot in America. That's interesting. I could see that. Yeah.
You're talking about Brazil. Uruguay's already gone there.
I mean, that's not Latin. That's Central America, but yeah.
I think they kind of threw them in there, though.
Yeah.
So really interesting, though, when you look at 2020 versus 2021, basically just want to get an idea of what's going on from one year to another. And then do you have any crystal ball predictions that you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so I mean, I could definitely. So I know all of the states that are going to happen in 2021 is kind of one of the main things I cover on my show is covering the political standings in each state and around the world. But yeah, Rhode Island 2021 for sure. People are saying that. New York, obviously, Connecticut, Virginia. New Mexico is another one, which also is very important when it comes to Texas, because, we want to surround the state with legal states, right? The more we surround a state with legal states, the more pressure it puts on a state like Texas to legalize, because they don't want, local money leaving their economy. Where else would there be? Yeah, so Virginia is going to be an interesting one for sure, because that's going to be kind of one of the first southern states to go recreational. Yeah, there's a chance Minnesota. There's a chance Minnesota could in 2021. Yeah, and so I think we're probably going to see in 2021 via legislative action, not voter initiative, we're going to see anywhere from 3 to 6 states legalize, I'd say 3 to 5 states legalize cannabis recreationally. And we're going to see the MORE Act, like I said at the very beginning. We're going to see the MORE Act probably happen here in either later this year in 2021, or we're going to see it hopefully in early 2022. But we'll have to see how that really turns out. I think that there's enough people surrounding that are involved in the Joe Biden administration that it will happen, but we'll have to see. But I would prediction wise, MORE Act is happening late 2021, early 2022.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see anything in 2021. In fact, federal legalization might not happen until 2023 or even 2024. There's going to be a lot of helicopter money, which means that you're going to continue to see people putting investments in other things other than the dollar and treasuries, like Bitcoin that just went over 42,000. We're expecting triple digits in cannabis stocks this year.
Did you see what JP Morgan just came out with? They said that. Yeah. They said JP Morgan, which is pretty insane. They came out. This came out yesterday, I think. They said that by next year, Bitcoin is going to hit $156,000.
I've seen a few people mention 112,000, but 156,000 is crazy.
And JP Morgan saying that, I think that's pretty insane for a company like that. So,
yeah, people are looking for speculation and FOMO and looking at trying to get out of the US dollar. And so, cannabis stocks all do well. Sin stocks do better during economic downturns. So I think that as things we start to print out too much money and then the economy kind of crumbles because we've been on lockdown for so long, cannabis stocks are going to do really well. So all of these things, comparing 2020 to 2021, I get that why legalization moved from number 2 to number 1 and why maybe price and profit aren't so important anymore. The stupid money with these mergers and the consolidation and all of those things with people doing more research and development on cannabinoids and CBD because of the high demand that we've seen with the lockdown. People are going to be looking for other markets and looking to expand internationally, and it's all about capital. So you're going to need that investment, and it's definitely going to surge because investors, they're looking at FOMO too. A lot of them are backtracked on crypto and said, oops, we got that wrong. We got Tesla wrong. We got cannabis wrong. It's going to skyrocket. Look, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
All right. I know you got to get out of here, Luke. So where can people find you? Luke Carlin, he is a cannabis consultant and host at Let's Talk Cannabis, LMC. And is it Wall of Flowers? That's an event.
Oh, it's Frame of Flower. That's my podcast, Frame of Flower. But yeah, just go to my YouTube channel, Let's Talk Cannabis LMC, and then, I'll have all my other channels and everything else connected there. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Josh. Really appreciate it. It's always, I actually really enjoyed this.
Quick and dirty, man. We got to just get out 2021's Crystal Ball predictions. Quick and dirty.
Yeah,
all
man.
right. I want to thank my guest, Luke Carlin.
You on my way too. You gotta come on my show soon.
Anytime, man. All right. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.
Thanks, guys.
Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.